Our first opportunity, our first privilege, our first duty is to all of those in our electorates, and we say a very grateful thanks to all of them for returning us to this place, to represent them and to do our very, very best. And so, Mr Speaker, since that general election, the government has been hard at work, as I've mentioned in various responses and statements in this place and in others, and I don't intend to go over those matters because this afternoon is about something very different. I did, however, though, Mr Deputy Speaker, wanted to acknowledge the great challenges that Australians had faced, and particularly over in the area of natural disasters. The year began with the devastating bushfires in Tasmania and Victoria, and it of course went through to the unprecedented flooding in North Queensland. None of us, and I certainly can't get the image out of my head that was displayed of that railway line up in North Queensland, out near Cloncurry, where we saw the water over a 48-hour period just come and deluge that part of our continent. And in a heartbeat, it would have felt like, in the space of just 24 hours, those wonderful Australians went from relief and joy of seeing rain fall to tears and devastation as they saw generations of their efforts just literally washed away. And of all the things that have happened this year, Mr Speaker, and there have been so many, as we've walked onto fire grounds and we've sat with those who have been affected by these terrible fires across the year, it is very hard for me to get out of my mind being up there in North Queensland with those families. And we have them still in our thoughts and in our actions today, and we continue to stand with them as they rebuild. Because in the great natural disasters that we see in this country, we also always see the greatness of Australians, their resilience, their tenacity, their care and their love for each other. At the worst of times, we see the best of Australians. And so we saw that in North Queensland. We have seen one of the worst droughts on record, impacting some 40,000 farming families and rural districts across the country. This fire season alone, 6 Australians have already tragically lost their lives to fires that have torn through millions of hectares across 4 states and claimed hundreds of homes. And these events remind us that while the lucky country remains the lucky country, it's no passive moniker. It is one that is built and earned by the strength and character of resilience by our fellow Australians. Our first defence in everything is the strength and character of our people, our brave and selfless firefighters, our emergency services personnel, and today is indeed the National Day of the Volunteer. And we reflect on those and we thank them very much for their wonderful service to our country. We think of our servicemen and women who also turned up in support of their fellow Australians through all of these disasters. Our communities, the businesses who let their staff go and volunteer, being a business owner in a regional area of the country, in a rural area of the country, it's tough enough, but they're the ones also who have to carry the burden and carry the weight to enable their staff to go and be there for their community, and they are equal in their service by providing for that. Neighbours coming together, strangers coming together and acting as neighbours, and now they count each other as friends as they've come through fire and flood and drought. Everyone has played their part. As well, with Christmas almost upon us, we remember those who, for whatever reason, are doing it tough. The Leader of Opposition and I were at the Kmart Salvos event just outside my office recently, and the Leader of the Opposition rightly.
That's where our Sky News on Win viewers leave us. For you, coming up next is Fox Sports News. For those watching on Sky News, we'll return to the Prime Minister.
Those who are affected by domestic violence. Any number of reasons will mean that there are many Australians, as we go into this Christmas season once again, for whom this will be a very difficult time. And again, it will be those fellow Australians who reach out to them and seek to provide them with support as they work through their terrible difficulties. There will be those who will be alone or will be bereaved. There will be those who will be there will be a missing place at the table, and that will be tough. And they will reflect on the wonderful memories, hopefully, and of those times that we'll be able to be shared together, And that's what families and friends do. They help each other deal with the challenges of life. There'll be those who confined to hospital, those struggling on farms, those who battle insurmountable difficulties, it would seem. And I ask every one of us, and it's an appeal I make to all of us, to look out for those less fortunate and to look out for one another, particularly over this summer season, to keep safe on the roads, to exercise patience and care, and to don't need to get there as quick as you often think. We can get very busy at these times, and we know what can occur on our roads and the terrible tragedies that can unfold. And so I would ask everyone, as we go about this, what hopefully is a very happy time and one of reunion with many family and friends, that we all make sure we turn up safely and enjoy that experience. To Lifeline and all our other great services and volunteers who I know will be reaching out on Christmas Day, because they do it every year, thank you for serving up that Christmas cheer. Thank you also from all Australians to the surf lifesavers who will be on our beaches, not just looking after Australians, but the many visitors who will be here and are often put at so much risk, unaware and unfamiliar with the dangers that can be in our waters. To doctors and nurses and the AMBOs, the emergency and essential services workers who will give up their family time on Christmas Day and beyond to ensure the rest of us can have a happy and safe holiday period. Mr Speaker, in particular, Mr Deputy Speaker, as we come together with family, let us also reflect with gratitude on the serving men and women of our Defence Forces, some 1,500 who are around the world serving in so many different capacities, separated from their loved ones by the call of duty and because of their passion and love for our nation. Whether at sea or in the air or on land, in Afghanistan, the Middle East or the many missions in other parts of the world, or keeping our borders safe closer to home, those serving in our diplomatic service, we thank them. We thank them, and we wish them a very Merry Christmas. And we stand by our veterans community also, remembering always their depth of their sacrifice and responding to it with respect and strong and ongoing support. Mr Deputy Speaker, it is also fitting time of this year to extend to the Leader of the Opposition and his family my very best wishes for Christmas and the holiday season, whether he'll be watching reruns or I'll be of old footy games and things like that, who knows. But I do hope he has a wonderful Christmas and holiday period with his family and a bit of time of rest. And so we'll all be back here again next year. All be back here again next year and ready to serve our constituents and play and perform the important roles that we do in this place. And so I hope he has a great break. I also want to acknowledge his predecessor, the previous Leader of the Opposition, the member for Maribyrnong, who served in that role, and I wish him and Chloe and all of their family a very happy Christmas and a very safe and pleasant New Year. Menzies would often say of Curtin and Chifley, opponents but not enemies, and I believe this is true. So that is the spirit in which these messages are sent. And to all the members of the opposition, I wish you all the best for a happy and successful break. To my own team, when you leave this place and go home to your families, you can be immensely proud of everything that you've achieved this year, and you have my grateful thanks. When I took on the role of leadership of the Parliamentary Liberal Party and then together with the Deputy Prime Minister stood before you, I said, you've asked me to lead and I've asked you to follow, and you've paid me the greatest honour in your decision to follow. And together we have been able to achieve something quite extraordinary. But as I said on election night, the victory was not ours. The victory was of those Australians who put their great faith in us. My proudest moment, though, was of course the day after, because it meant we got to get on with the job, and that's what we will continue to do. I also particularly want to extend my best wishes and appreciation to my Deputy Prime Minister and my coalition partner, the Deputy Prime Minister Michael McCormack and his wife Catherine. They are great friends, and he's not a bad cricketer either, based on his own report. And it has been a true joy to be able to lead a government together with a man as decent as Michael. And I wish he and Catherine, they have been together for such a long time, and they're such an example to us all. And indeed, as I look forward to my 30th wedding anniversary in January, I think you and Catherine have just been such a wonderful blessing. 33 years, so I don't know if we'll ever catch you, but we'll catch up. We'll get close every year. We'll get close every year. Mr Deputy Speaker, To my tremendous deputy, Josh Frydenberg, Deputy Leader of the Parliamentary Liberal Party and Treasurer, thank you very much to you, Josh. Bringing down a budget, your first budget, is a very significant thing to do. All of those who have had that great privilege to stand at this dispatch box and set out the expenditures of a government and its fiscal settings and the things that you're able to achieve through strong financial management. It is a great honour and a great privilege. And for Josh to be able to, the member for Kooyong, I should say, Mr Speaker, but with some indulgence, for the member, the Treasurer, to be able to come and to do that this year and do it in such fine style. And I know he's looking even more forward to the next one, having achieved a first surplus, to be able to announce another one, Mr Speaker, and he'll do a tremendous job. To the Deputy Leader of the National Party, Senator Bridget McKenzie. There he is. His ears were burning, Mr Speaker. To the Deputy Leader of the National Party, Senator McKenzie, can I thank you also, Bridget, for the tremendous guidance and support you've given to our leadership team and your passionate support for regional Australia and ensuring we're always very familiar with the challenges that are being faced in rural and regional Australia. To our newly minted Leader of the House, thank you for saying yes when I asked you to take this job. There he is. Mr Speaker, as we honoured the previous Leader of Government Business in the House, largely in his own direction, when we put his picture up on the wall. I haven't checked to see if he's still standing there in front of it admiring it, Mr Speaker, but he certainly did for some time the other night, and so he should, because he was an adornment to this House. And for the new Leader of Government Business in the House, I want to thank Christian very much for the enormous workload he takes on as our Attorney-General and Minister for Industrial Relations. That of itself is an extraordinarily large task, and to back that up and the incredible work that is required to move the government's business through this place and to ensure we can continue to deliver for Australians, I thank him very much for his great service both to our government and to our parties. Mr Speaker, can I also thank our leadership team in the Senate, of course Senator Cormann and Senator Birmingham. And Senator Cormann has got quite a high strike rate, Mr Speaker, when it comes to ensuring the passage of the government's legislation, and I thank him for the way that he's engaged with crossbench members, and wish all of them also all the very best, as I do the crossbench members here for the Christmas season. I thank them for their dedication. To my own team, can I thank my Chief of Staff, John Kunkel. Thank you for your support, John, and the great work that is done by you and your leadership of all of my team, which is so important to the running of the government. And I want to thank all the hard-working and committed staff of Coalition members, and we had the opportunity to thank them all last night. But can I also say to the opposition members and all of their staff, I wish them also all the best for Christmas and the holiday period. Can I thank the Chief Government Whip and the Deputy Whips for ensuring we stay on track, but not just for that. I'm sure the Leader of the Opposition would know in the role of their own whip, they play such an important part and work closely together between opposition and government, not just to ensure the smooth running of this place, but for the pastoral care that is provided to members of this parliament on both sides of this House. I want to thank our whips, both from the government side and from the opposition side, and their deputies for the great work they do. To the Clerk of the House, congratulations on your appointment. It's wonderful to see our first female clerk here, but not just that, but someone of immense capability. And we love those earrings yesterday, and these ones are just as good. Right in the Christmas spirit, Mr Speaker. And we wish you and your family and the Deputy Clerk and all the Clerk's assistants who support them. To the Sergeant at Arms, James Catchpole, also our thanks to you. And from my own department, David Belgrove, Anne O'Connor and Sue Clemmer, who work in the legislative team, who have been of great help to me and my staff. To the House Parliamentary Liaison Officer, Charlie Higgins, and the rest of the team in the Tables Office, thank you, and the First Parliamentary Counsel, Peter Quiggin PSM, and his team, our deep thanks. And I'd like to make a special mention of Debbie Arnold, who is leaving us as the Senate Parliamentary Liaison Officer and has been instrumental helping my staff and me to program the government's agenda in the other place. Other long-serving staff who retired this year, as we noted, David Elder, former clerk, here for 38 years. Trish Bickett from the Tables Office, 34 years. Laura Gillies, 34 years. James Rees, 28 years. Anu Palm, 23 years. Anthony over 17 years. It is clearly a vocation and one taken very seriously by those who serve this parliament, and we thank you. Thanks also to all the attendants in this place, to Luch and the whole mob. Thank you very, very much. You're always a great encouragement and have been over many years. Whichever side of the House you sit on, there's always the great warm smile and friendly attendance that we get from you. In last year's and we also thank, of course, all the federal police and security, all those in catering and library and Hansard and support staff who make the institution run so smoothly, Mr Speaker, and we thank them through you for their great work. In last year's valedictory, I mentioned Lucia, Anna and Maria, who are the three cleaners from my own office who have been working this building for a very long time. And they really do have a way of just lighting us all up. Now, Anna and Maria are sisters, and at this time last year it was very tough. They'd just lost their mum. But recently we were able to share together a much brighter moment, a wonderful morning tea celebration with Louisa's 30th anniversary of service in this building to many Prime Ministers over a long period of time, and I know she would have been held in as much affection by my predecessors and as indeed as by me and my own team. It was lovely to meet Luisa's husband Marcelo and their children, Marion, Lucia and Isabel, and their grandchildren as well. It was a wonderful day. And next year we'll be celebrating Anna's 30th anniversary milestone as well. And she's a wonderful personality, and she's the only person in the world who I understand called Mr Howard Pumpkin. I once again congratulate all of them and thank them. Mr Speaker, on a sadder note, this year was a year we lost two of our nation's finest leaders and statesmen, and it was a privilege to join with the Monash Foundation in honouring them the scholarships that were able to be awarded in their honour. To the late Bob Hawke and to the late Tim Fisher, and to all of their families, we want to acknowledge their great service to our country. Our country is so much better for their extraordinary contribution that they are able to deliver in their service, and they have set a standard for us all to seek to attain to. Their passing remind us of what politics is truly all about, serving honourably and courageously the Australian people. And finally, to you, Mr Speaker, to you and Pam and all the family, have a wonderful Christmas to you, and you continue to serve us and keep this show on the road in this parliament with great dignity, and you do it with a wit and a candour and an affection for which I think people around the country have got to know you well for over many years now in this role. There have been many great speakers, Mr Speaker, and I have no doubt you are one of them. And I think over the course of your time as Speaker, you will certainly stand out amongst them, if not above them all. And it's a great privilege every time I see you in that chair, because I was so pleased to support you going into that chair. And you have not let this House down on one occasion, not on one occasion. And we thank you very much for all the work you do to maintain the spirit of this House and its important work. So, with all of those well wishes, Mr Speaker, of course it has been an adventurous year, it has been a dramatic year, it has been a year of a general election, it has been a year of achievements, it's been a year of disappointments for some, Mr Speaker, but it is a year in which the great Australian spirit has showcased itself again to itself and to the world. This really is the greatest country in the world in which to live, and whatever difficulties before us or whatever challenges are in front of us, the one thing we can always say with a full heart is it's great to be an Australian. Merry Christmas, everyone.